The clock on my phone read 1:44 a.m. when I finally stopped trying to hold it together. I had been sitting in my car in the underground parking garage for over an hour, hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, breathing exercises failing to stop the panic rising in my chest. The text message I had received 3 hours ago was still open on my phone screen, 5 words that had shattered my entire world. Your father did not make it. My name is Maya Reeves. And 12 hours ago, I still had a father. 12 hours ago, Marcus Reeves, the most loyal bodyguard in Dante Moretti's organization, was still alive. 12 hours ago, I was a 27-year-old graphic designer living a carefully ordinary life, deliberately separate from my father's dangerous world. Now, I was orphaned, alone, and sitting in the parking garage beneath Moretti Tower because I had nowhere else to go and no one else to turn to. Dad had been Dante Moretti's head of personal security for 18 years. He had started as a regular bodyguard when I was 9 years old, worked his way up through loyalty and competence, until he became the one person Dante trusted completely with his life. In a world where betrayal was common and trust was currency, my father had been invaluable, and 3 hours ago, he had taken a bullet meant for Dante Moretti, dying instantly according to the brief. Clinical message I had received from someone named Vincent, who identified himself as Dante's second-in-command. I should have gone to the hospital where they had taken Dad's body, should have made arrangements, called relatives, done the practical things that needed doing when someone died. But I could not function, could not think beyond the crushing weight of knowing my father was gone, that the man who had raised me alone after Mom died when I was 6, who had worked dangerous jobs to give me a safe childhood, who had insisted I stay away from his work precisely so I would never be in danger, was dead because of that work. The parking garage was nearly empty at this hour. Just a few expensive cars belonging to people who worked late or lived in the luxury apartments on the upper floors of Moretti Tower. I had used the access card Dad had given me years ago for emergencies, never imagining I would use it like this, never imagining the emergency would be his death. I had met Dante Moretti exactly 7 times in my life, always briefly, always in contexts where my father was present. Dad had kept his work life and his family life rigidly separated, believing that distance would keep me safe from the violence that surrounded Dante's empire, but he had also wanted me to understand why he did what he did. So occasionally, very occasionally, he would bring me to company events or introduce me to the man he protected. Each meeting with Dante had been formal, polite, brief. He was intimidating in the way powerful men often are, tall and broad-shouldered with dark hair that was graying at the temples despite him being only 40 years old. His eyes were an unusual amber color, almost gold in certain lights, and they seemed to see everything. He dressed in suits that probably cost more than I made in 6 months, spoke with quiet authority, and carried himself like someone who had never questioned his right to command. But with me, he had always been surprisingly gentle, asked about my education, my work, my life with genuine interest rather than polite obligation, thanked me for sharing my father with his organization, acknowledging the sacrifice that entailed, treated me not as Marcus Reeves' daughter, but as Maya, a person in my own right. I had appreciated that, even as I maintained careful distance from his world. The last time I had seen Dante was 6 months ago, at a charity gala Dad had insisted I attend. Dante had approached me during the cocktail hour, asked how my design business was going, listened attentively when I talked about a challenging client project. He had been almost charming in a dangerous way, like a tiger that was currently well-fed and therefore safe to be near. But you never forgot what it was capable of. Your father speaks of you often, Dante had said that night. He is very proud of your accomplishments. Proud that you built something completely separate from this world. He wanted me to have choices he never had. I had replied. Wanted me to be safe in ways he never was. He succeeded. Dante's amber eyes had held something I could not quite read. You should be grateful for that. Safety is a rare gift in any world, but especially in mine. Now, sitting in the parking garage at 1:44 a.m., I understood with bitter irony that my father's attempt to keep me safe had failed in the worst possible way. He was dead because of the danger he had tried to shield me from, and I was alone, grieving in a parking garage because I could not face going home to the apartment where every item would remind me of him. I did not hear the footsteps approaching my car, did not notice anything until a knock on my window made me jump, a small scream escaping before I could stop it. When I looked up, Dante Moretti stood beside my car, still dressed in a suit despite the late hour, though his jacket was missing and his white shirt had what looked like blood on the shoulder. My father's blood, I realized with a fresh wave of grief. Dante made a rolling motion with his hand, indicating I should lower my window. I did, slowly, not sure what else to do. Miss Reeves, His voice was quieter than I remembered. Gentler. May I? He gestured toward the passenger seat. I nodded, unable to form words. Dante walked around the car and slid into the passenger seat, his large frame making my modest sedan feel suddenly very small. He did not speak immediately, just sat there, and I noticed his hands were shaking slightly. Not much, but enough that I could see it. How did you know I was here? I finally managed to ask. Building security alerted me when your access card was used. I have been waiting to see if you would come upstairs or if you needed space. When an hour passed with no movement, I thought perhaps you might need someone. His thoughtfulness surprised me. I had expected Dante Moretti to be many things. Dangerous, powerful, commanding, but not attuned to the emotional needs of his dead bodyguard's daughter. I did not know where else to go. The words came out broken. I could not go home, could not face his apartment, could not be alone with this. I understand. Dante's voice was thick with something I had not expected. Emotion. Your father was. He stopped, struggling. He was more than my bodyguard, Maya. He was my friend, one of the very few people I trusted completely. His loss is devastating. I turned to look at him fully for the first time since he had entered my car. In the dim lighting of the parking garage, I could see that his eyes were red-rimmed, his jaw clenched tightly, his whole body rigid with the effort of maintaining control. This was not the composed, untouchable mob boss I had met at formal events. This was a man barely holding himself together. What happened? I asked, needing to know. The message I got just said he did not make it. No details, no explanation, just gone. Dante took a shuddering breath. We were leaving a meeting. Routine business. Nothing that should have been dangerous. But someone, we are still determining who, took a shot at me from a rooftop. Professional. Well-positioned. The bullet would have hit me center mass if your father had not. If Marcus had not. He stopped again, his voice breaking. If he had not pushed you out of the way. I finished, the reality settling over me like a physical weight. He died saving you. Yes, the word was barely audible. He pushed me aside and took the bullet himself. It was instant. He did not. There was no pain. If that provides any comfort, it did not. Nothing could. But I nodded anyway, acknowledging his attempt to offer solace. We sat in silence for several minutes. I could hear Dante's breathing, harsh and uneven, like he was fighting back tears. When I glanced over, I saw his hands were still shaking, clenched into fists on his thighs. I never wanted this. Dante's voice was barely a whisper. Never wanted Marcus to die for me. He had a daughter, had a life outside my organization. He should have been able to retire, grow old, see grandchildren. Not this. The raw pain in his voice cracked something open inside me. All night, I had been holding my grief tightly, afraid that if I let it out, I would shatter completely. But hearing Dante, this powerful man, breaking down over my father's death, gave me permission to do the same. The tears came suddenly, violently, great racking sobs that shook my whole body. I pressed my hands to my face, trying to muffle the sound, trying to maintain some dignity, but it was impossible. I cried for my father, for the life he would never have, for all the conversations we would never share, for the fact that his last act was dying for someone else, loyal to the very end, even when that loyalty cost him everything. I felt Dante's hand on my shoulder, hesitant at first, then firmer, a gesture of comfort from a man who probably did not often offer comfort. I turned toward him without thinking, and suddenly I was crying into his shoulder, his arms coming around me carefully, holding me while I fell apart. He smelled like expensive cologne and gunpowder, and something metallic that was probably blood. His shirt was rough against my face, the fabric expensive but currently soaked with my tears and possibly my father's blood. None of it mattered. What mattered was that someone was here, someone who had known my father, someone who was grieving him too. I am sorry. I managed to gasp out between sobs. I should not be crying on you like this. Do not apologize. Dante's voice was rough, strained. Your father would want someone to hold you while you grieved. Since he cannot, I will. We stayed like that for a long time. Me crying into Dante's shoulder, him holding me with surprising gentleness for someone with his reputation, and gradually I became aware that his breathing was hitching, that his shoulders were shaking, that he was crying too. When I finally pulled back enough to see his face, tears were streaming down his cheeks. Dante Moretti, feared mob boss, was crying, actually crying, in my car, at 1:44 in the morning, over my father. I am sorry, he said, wiping at his face with one hand while the other remained on my shoulder. I should be stronger, should be able to maintain control, but I cannot. Not about this. Not about Marcus. You loved him, I said, understanding suddenly. Not just as an employee. You actually loved him. He was. Dante's voice broke completely. He was the only person in my world who never wanted anything from me. Never saw me as Dante Moretti, mob boss. Just saw me as a man, a person. He told me when I was being an idiot. Called me out when I was wrong. Treated me like a friend rather than a boss. And now he is gone. Died for me. And he could not continue. I found myself reaching up to wipe tears from Dante's face, the gesture intimate and strange given who he was. But in this moment, he was not the powerful mob boss. He was just a man grieving his friend, a man who had been pretending to be strong when he was breaking inside. Dad told me once that you were worth protecting, I said quietly, remembering a conversation we had had years ago when I had asked him why he stayed in such a dangerous job. He said you were not like the others, that you had honor, principles, that you took care of the people who served you, that you were building something better than what your father had left you. Did he really say that? Dante looked at me with something like desperate hope. Or are you just trying to make me feel better? He really said it. He told me you were trying to transition your organization toward more legitimate operations, that you were using your power to protect people rather than just to accumulate more power, that working for you meant something beyond just a paycheck. Dante closed his eyes, fresh tears leaking from beneath his lids, and I repaid his loyalty by getting him killed. No, I gripped his shoulder, the same way he had gripped mine. You did not pull that trigger. You did not choose this. Someone else made the decision to kill. Dad made the decision to protect you. Those were their choices, not yours. He should not have had to make that choice. No, he should not have. But he did. And he would not regret it, Dante. He believed in you, believed in what you were building, believed it was worth protecting, even at the cost of his own life. That should not be the cost. Dante's voice was anguished. No belief, no cause. Nothing is worth Marcus Reeves dying at 52 years old. Nothing. We sat in silence again, both of us exhausted from crying, from grief, from the weight of loss. Finally, Dante spoke again. Come upstairs, please. You should not be alone right now. I have a guest room. You can rest, shower, eat if you can manage it. Just do not be alone in a parking garage at 1:44 in the morning. I should go home, I protested weakly. Should start making arrangements, calling people, doing what needs to be done. All of that can wait until morning. Dante's voice was firmer now, some of his natural authority returning. Right now, you need rest, safety, someone who understands what you have lost. Please, Maya, let me do this one thing for Marcus. Let me take care of his daughter since I can no longer protect him. The raw need in his voice to do something, anything to make amends, decided me. I nodded, too exhausted to argue further. Dante's penthouse occupied the entire top floor of Moretti Tower. It was exactly what I expected. Luxurious, expensive, perfectly decorated, but it also had unexpected warmth. Books everywhere. Comfortable furniture mixed with the obviously priceless antiques. Photos on the walls showing what I assumed was his family, including several featuring a man I recognized as my father, standing beside Dante at various events over the years. That was 2 years ago, Dante said, noticing me looking at a photo of him, and Dad, at what looked like a restaurant opening. Marcus had just talked me out of a particularly stupid business decision. I insisted on this photo to commemorate his wisdom. He hated having his picture taken, but I wanted to remember. He looks happy, I said, studying my father's face in the photo. He had a real smile, not the polite one he used in formal situations, a smile that reached his eyes. He was happy that night. We had just secured a deal that would legitimize a significant portion of my operations. He said it was a good first step toward the empire I claimed I wanted to build. An empire based on business rather than violence. Is that what you want? To build something legitimate? I want to build something my children could be proud of rather than frightened by. Dante moved to a bar cart, pouring 2 glasses of what looked like expensive scotch. Something my father would not be ashamed of when I eventually stand before whatever judgment awaits men like me. Did Dad know you thought like that? He was the one who convinced me to think like that. Dante handed me one of the glasses. For years after I inherited this empire from my father, I just continued, maintained, did what was expected. But Marcus, he asked me one day what I was building toward, what my end goal was beyond just accumulating power and money. I had no answer, and that question haunted me until I finally started making changes. I sipped the scotch, The burn a welcome distraction from grief. So you listen to your bodyguard's philosophy lessons. I listened to my friend's wisdom. Dante sat down heavily on the sofa. Your father he was better than me, Maya. Better than most people I know. He had principles, integrity. He could have leveraged his position with me for personal gain countless times, but never did. Just did his job, protected me, offered advice when I asked, and somehow made me want to be better than I was. He had that effect on people. I remembered how Dad had been with me growing up. Patient, principled, always pushing me to be my best self while accepting me exactly as I was. Dante showed me to a guest room that was larger than my entire apartment. A private bathroom, a closet with clothes that would probably fit me, women's clothes in various sizes that suggested Dante kept supplies for unexpected guests. I did not ask why, did not want to know. After Dante left, I stood under the shower for nearly an hour, letting the hot water wash away tears and parking garage grime and the feeling of unreality that had pervaded everything since I got that text message. When I finally emerged, I found pajamas that fit reasonably well and fell into the enormous bed, but sleep would not come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my father's face, heard his voice, remembered moments from my childhood that now felt unbearably precious. At 3:30 a.m., I gave up and wandered back out to the main living area. Dante was still awake, sitting on the sofa with another glass of scotch, staring at nothing. He looked up when I entered, no surprise in his expression, as if he had expected I would not be able to sleep. "Nightmares?" he asked. "Memories, which might be worse." I sat down on the opposite end of the sofa. Every happy moment now feels like evidence of everything I lost. "I know." Dante's voice was quiet. "My father died when I was 18, murdered by rivals. For years afterward, I could not think about the good times without it hurting worse than the bad times. The bad times at least made sense. The good times just emphasized what was stolen. Does it get better? Or am I going to feel like this forever? It gets different. Not better exactly, but more manageable. The grief becomes part of you rather than something destroying you. You learn to carry it, to function around it, to honor the dead by living, rather than just surviving. If you enjoyed Maya and Dante's first encounter in grief, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps me create more content like this. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another story. Thank you, and now let us continue with the devastating truth Maya is about to reveal. We sat in silence for several minutes before I spoke again, voicing the question that had been building since I received that text. Why did he do it? Why did Dad push you out of the way? He had to know it would kill him. Instinct, probably. Training. Dante's voice was hollow. He had spent 18 years conditioning himself to protect me. It was automatic. No, I shook my head. It was more than that. Dad could have quit any time. You gave your people the option to leave, right? To retire with full benefits? Yes, always. I never hold people against their will. So why did he stay? Why did he keep putting himself between you and bullets for 18 years? He could have left. Could have taken a safer job. Could have been alive right now. Because he believed in me. Dante's voice cracked. Believed I could be better than my father. Could transform this empire into something that did more good than harm. He invested in that belief, invested his life in it, and I failed him. I turned to face Dante fully, seeing the guilt and grief warring on his face. You did not fail him. You gave him purpose, gave him something to believe in beyond just a paycheck. Do you know how rare that is? How precious? It cost him his life, Maya. How is that precious? Because he chose it, I said fiercely. Dad was not naive. He knew the risks, knew he could die any day. But he stayed because he believed you were worth protecting, because he believed in the empire you were building, because I stopped, realizing something I had never fully acknowledged. Because he loved you, Dante, as a friend, as a son, almost. You were family to him in ways that had nothing to do with blood. Dante closed his eyes, tears leaking from beneath his lids again. He was family to me, too, more than my actual brothers, who only see me as a source of power and money. Marcus saw me as Dante, just Dante, and now he is gone and I do not know how to be the person he believed I could be without him here to remind me. You do it by being that person, by honoring his sacrifice, by continuing to build what he believed in, I felt my own tears returning, by taking care of his daughter because he cannot. Is that what you want? Dante opened his eyes, looking at me with desperate hope, to be part of my life. I would understand if you wanted nothing to do with me, if seeing me just reminds you of what you lost. Seeing you reminds me of what Dad believed in, I said honestly. And right now, that is the only comfort I have, knowing he died for something that mattered to him, someone who mattered to him. We talked through the night, sharing memories of my father. Dante told me stories I had never heard, moments of my father's wisdom or humor or unexpected kindness that had shaped Dante's decisions. I told him about my childhood, about how Dad had been both mother and father after Mom died, about his fierce determination to give me a normal life, separate from his dangerous work. As dawn broke over the city, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, we sat together in exhausted silence. The grief was still crushing, the loss still unbearable, but somehow, sharing it had made it slightly more bearable. We were two people who loved Marcus Reeves, mourning him together. I need to tell you something, I said finally, voicing the secret I had been carrying since receiving that text. Something Dad told me 6 months ago that I did not understand until tonight. What is it? Dante's full attention focused on me. He knew, I whispered, fresh tears streaming down my face. He knew something was going to happen. 6 months ago, he called me out of the blue, asked me to meet him for coffee, and he told me that if anything ever happened to him, I should contact you, should trust you. He said you would take care of me because that is who you are. He said. I stopped, my voice breaking. What did he say, Maya? He said you were the son he never had, that protecting you was not just a job but a privilege, that he hoped you and I would take care of each other if he was gone, because we were the two people he loved most in the world, and we both would need family. The words hit Dante like a physical blow. His face crumpled, all his careful control shattering completely. He made a sound that was somewhere between a sob and a wail, grief finally overwhelming him entirely. I moved without thinking, pulling him into my arms the way he had held me in the car. Dante collapsed against me, his large frame shaking with sobs, crying into my shoulder the way I had cried into his. We held each other and cried, two people devastated by the same loss, finding in each other the only comfort that existed. He knew. Dante gasped out between sobs. He knew, and he still stayed, still protected me, still chose this. Why would he do that? Why would he choose to leave you? Because he loved you both, I said, understanding finally. He loved you and he loved me, and he believed we would take care of each other, that his death would not leave either of us alone, because we would have each other. He was trying to protect us both, even in dying. That is not fair. Dante pulled back slightly, his face ravaged by grief. You should not have to take care of me. I should be taking care of you. I am supposed to be strong, in control, not falling apart in your arms. Strength is not the same as not feeling. I cupped his face in my hands, the gesture intimate but necessary. Dad would not want you to be alone in this grief, would not want either of us to be alone. He gave us to each other, Dante, as a final gift, as a way to ensure his death did not leave us both destroyed. I cannot. Dante's voice broke again. I cannot be what he thought I was, cannot be worthy of his sacrifice, cannot live with the guilt of his death, then live with the love, I said, the words coming from somewhere deep and true. He loved you, Dante, died loving you, believing in you. That love does not disappear because he died. It just transfers to the people left behind to carry it. We carry his love now, his belief, his hope for what you could build and who you could become. How do I do that? How do I carry that without being crushed by the weight? You let me help you carry it. I leaned my forehead against his. Dad was right. We need each other now. Not because either of us is weak, but because grief this profound. It requires sharing, requires someone who understands exactly what was lost. We stayed like that as full daylight flooded the penthouse, holding each other, crying together, beginning the slow, painful process of learning to exist in a world without Marcus Reeves in it. Over the following days, I learned what my father's death meant for Dante's organization. The retaliation was swift and brutal. Dante's people identified the shooter, traced him back to a rival organization, and responded with overwhelming force. I did not ask for details, did not want to know exactly what Dante did to the people responsible for my father's death, but the city's underworld knew within 48 hours that killing Marcus Reeves had consequences. I also learned what my father's death meant for me personally. Dante insisted I stay in his penthouse, at least temporarily, claiming it was safer than my apartment, while tensions were high. I protested weakly, but accepted, too grief-stricken to argue, and secretly relieved to not be alone. My apartment held too many memories. Dante's penthouse held grief. Yes, but also the strange comfort of someone who understood exactly what I had lost. The funeral was held 1 week after Dad's death. It was larger than I expected. Hundreds of people showing up to pay respects to the man who had protected Dante Moretti for 18 years. Some were from Dante's organization, hard-faced men and women who I realized had worked alongside my father. Others were from the neighborhood where Dad and I had lived when I was young, people whose lives Dad had touched in small ways, and some were completely unexpected, business leaders and politicians, and people who moved in legitimate circles, but clearly knew exactly who Dante Moretti was and wanted to honor his fallen bodyguard. Dante gave the eulogy. I had not expected that, thought he would delegate to someone else, or keep his grief private, but he stood at the podium, looking out at the assembled mourners, and spoke with raw honesty. Marcus Reeves was my bodyguard for 18 years. Dante's voice was controlled, but I could hear the emotion beneath. But he was more than that. He was my advisor, my conscience, my friend. He challenged me when I was wrong, supported me when I was right, and he believed I could be better than my father, better than the empire I inherited. That belief shaped every decision I made for nearly 2 decades. Dante paused, his eyes finding mine in the front row. Marcus died doing what he had done countless times before, protecting me. But his sacrifice was not just about saving my life. It was about protecting what we had built together, a vision of an empire that operates with honor, that protects the vulnerable, that uses power for something beyond just accumulating more power. That vision continues, because Marcus Reeves did not die for me personally. He died for what I represent, for what we were building together. And I promised to honor that sacrifice by continuing that work, by being the man he believed I could be. He had to stop then, emotion overwhelming him. I stood and moved to his side, taking his hand, and together we faced the mourners, 2 people bound by grief and by my father's belief in both of us. After the funeral, people approached me to share their condolences and their memories of Dad. Many I did not know. Many seemed surprised that Marcus Reeves had a daughter, suggesting how well Dad had kept his personal life private, but they all said the same thing, that my father had been honorable, brave, loyal, worthy of respect and grief. One woman approached me near the end, elegant and older, perhaps in her 60s. She introduced herself as Rosa Moretti, Dante's mother. "Your father was a good man," she said, her accent slight but present. "He kept my son safe, kept him human. In a world that rewards monstrosity, Marcus helped Dante remember his humanity. For that, I will always be grateful." "Did you know him well?" I asked, curious about this connection I had not known existed. "Well enough to know he loved you more than anything." Rosa's eyes were kind. "He spoke of you often, of your safety, your success, your distance from this world. He was proud that you had built something completely separate from violence. That was his greatest achievement in his mind. Keeping you safe. He failed at that," I said bitterly. "I am not safe. Not anymore. Not with him gone." Rosa took my hand in hers. "You are safer than you know, child. Dante will protect you now. Not because Marcus asked him to, though he did, but because Dante chooses to. You have become important to him, in ways I suspect neither of you fully understand yet. I am just his dead bodyguard's daughter. You are the daughter of the man he loved like a father." Rosa's voice was firm. "Do not underestimate what that means. My son does not love easily or lightly, but when he does, he is absolutely loyal. You are family now, Maya, whether you intended to be or not." After everyone left, Dante and I stood together at my father's grave. The headstone was simple but elegant, just his name and dates, and a single line Dante had chosen. "He died protecting what he believed in." "Is that true?" I asked. "Did he really believe in what you are building? Or am I just telling myself that to make his death bearable?" "He believed." Dante's voice was quiet but certain. "We spent 18 years discussing philosophy, ethics, strategy. Marcus pushed me constantly to be better, to move operations toward legitimate business, to use power to protect rather than to exploit. Every major decision I made, I consulted him. Every moral compromise, he challenged. He was my compass, Maya. And now I have to navigate without him. Then let me help you." The words surprised me as much as him. "Let me, I do not know, offer perspective. Challenge you the way he did. I am not him, cannot replace him. But maybe I can continue what he started. Help you stay true to the vision he believed in." "Why would you want that?" Dante turned to face me. "You could walk away, leave this world behind, build the safe, separate life your father wanted for you. Because walking away would mean his death accomplished nothing," I said, realizing the truth as I spoke it. "Dad died protecting you, protecting what you were building together. If I walk away, If I pretend none of this matters, then his sacrifice was meaningless. But if I stay, if I help you continue what he believed in, then his death, then it means something. It accomplishes something beyond just saving your life in that moment. That is not your responsibility. Dante's eyes searched mine. You do not owe me anything, Maya. I owe him. I gestured to the grave. He gave me everything. A safe childhood, an education, a life free from violence. The least I can do is ensure his final act mattered, that the empire he died protecting becomes something worthy of that sacrifice. Are you certain? Because once you make that choice, once you become involved in my world, there is no going back to the safety your father built for you. I think that safety ended the moment he died, I said honestly. I cannot unknow what I know now, cannot unfeel what I feel, cannot pretend I do not care about honoring his memory. So yes, I am certain. Let me help you, Dante. Let me be part of what he believed in. Dante studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. He would want that, would want us to continue together, to take care of each other the way he could no longer take care of us both. Over the following months, my life transformed in ways I never anticipated. I did not quit my graphic design business, but I did begin spending more time at Moretti Tower, sitting in on meetings where Dante made decisions about his empire. My role was undefined, unofficial, but gradually I became his sounding board. The person he consulted when facing moral or strategic choices. The person who challenged him when his decisions leaned too far toward expedience over principle. Some of Dante's people resented my presence, saw me as an outsider who had not earned the access I was given. But others, particularly those who had known my father, seemed to understand, seemed to recognize that I was continuing Marcus Reeves's work, that I was serving the same function he had served, conscience and compass for a powerful man who needed both. Dante and I fell into patterns. Morning coffee where we discussed the day's agenda, evening debriefs where we analyzed decisions made, late-night conversations when neither of us could sleep, both still adjusting to a world without my father in it. We shared grief, yes, but also something else. A growing friendship built on mutual loss and shared purpose. It was 4 months after Dad's death when I realized my feelings for Dante had evolved beyond just grief shared and purpose aligned. We were working late, reviewing contracts for a property acquisition that would expand Dante's legitimate real estate holdings. Dante was explaining the strategic value, gesturing with the kind of enthusiasm he showed when discussing the legitimate side of his business. When I suddenly saw him not as my father's boss, but as a man, a complicated, damaged man trying to be better than his circumstances. A man who listened when I spoke, who valued my input, who had spent 4 months helping me grieve my father while grieving himself, who had become important to me in ways that had nothing to do with Dad. Dante noticed my staring. What? He asked, self-conscious. Do I have something on my face? No. I set down the contracts. I just realized something. Something that would probably horrify my father if he knew. What? Dante's expression became concerned. Maya, whatever it is, you can tell me. I have feelings for you. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. Real feelings. Not just grief or gratitude or connection through Dad. Actual, complicated, probably inappropriate feelings that I have been trying to ignore for weeks but cannot anymore. Dante went very still. Oh, I know. I rushed to fill the silence. I know it is wrong. You were his boss. You are Dante Moretti. I am supposed to be continuing Dad's work, not developing feelings for the man he died protecting. I am sorry. I should not have said anything. Can we pretend I stopped when I saw Dante's expression. He was smiling, actually smiling, with warmth and relief and something that looked like hope. You think you are the only one with inappropriate feelings? He asked. Maya, I have been struggling with this for months, trying to honor Marcus's memory by keeping appropriate distance, trying to do right by you. But you have become the most important person in my life, and I do not want to pretend otherwise anymore. If you have been moved by Maya and Dante's journey from shared grief to unexpected love, please subscribe to this channel and hit that like button. Your support helps me bring you more stories like this. Turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Now, let us see where this complicated love leads. You have feelings for me? I asked, needing to hear it clearly. I have been falling in love with you since that first night, Dante admitted. When you cried in my arms, and I cried in yours. When we shared grief so profound that nothing else mattered, except not being alone. When you saw past what I am to who I might be, just like Marcus did. You have his wisdom, Maya, his strength, his ability to see the best in people, and I love you for it. Dad would probably kill you for this, I said. laughing and crying simultaneously. If he knew you fell in love with his daughter, Marcus told me 6 months before he died that if anything happened to him, I should watch over you. Dante moved closer, taking my hands in his. But he also said, and this haunted me for months after he died, he said that you were exactly the kind of woman who could keep me human, who could continue his work of ensuring I did not become the monster people expected. He said you and I together could build something he could be proud of. He knew, I whispered. Even then, he knew we might become something. I think he hoped we would. Dante's thumbs traced circles on the backs of my hands. Think he understood that you would need someone who knew him as well as you did, and I would need someone who understood what I lost when he died, that we could heal each other in ways no one else could. So what do we do? I asked. About these feelings that are completely inappropriate and probably exactly what Dad hoped for, and also terrifying? We be honest. Dante's amber eyes were intense. We stop pretending. We acknowledge that something profound has developed between us, and we see where it goes, carefully, mindfully, honoring Marcus's memory by being the people he believed we could be. I kissed him then, or he kissed me. I was not sure who moved first, but suddenly we were kissing, months of tension and grief and suppressed feelings pouring into that contact. It was desperate and gentle, and perfect, and terrifying. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. Dante rested his forehead against mine. I promise you I will never take you for granted. We'll never forget what Marcus sacrificed so I could be here with you. We'll never be anything less than the man he believed I could be. And I promise to keep you honest, I said. To challenge you when you are wrong. To support you when you are right. To continue what Dad started. To be your conscience and compass the way he was. So we try this? Dante asked. Whatever this is between us, we try. I agreed. Carefully. Honestly. Honoring Dad by being brave enough to live instead of just surviving grief. Our relationship developed slowly over the following year. We were conscious always of what we were building. Not just a romance, but a partnership in continuing my father's vision. I became more involved in Dante's operations, focusing particularly on the transition toward legitimate business. I brought design thinking to his real estate developments, rebranding efforts, community outreach programs. Dante's organization adapted to my presence. Some embraced it, seeing in me the same moral compass my father had provided. Others remained skeptical, though they kept that skepticism quiet, out of respect for both Marcus Reeves's memory and Dante's obvious affection for me. Rosa welcomed me with open arms. Your father would be pleased. She told me during a family dinner 6 months into our relationship. He wanted Dante to have someone strong beside him, someone who would not be intimidated by his power, but would instead channel it toward good. You are that person, Maya. I am trying to be, I said honestly. Some days I feel like I am just pretending, playing at being important when really, I am just a graphic designer in way over her head. Marcus felt the same way sometimes. Rosa smiled, wondered if Dante really needed his advice or was just humoring his bodyguard. But Dante did need him, and he needs you now. Trust that, even when you doubt yourself. Dante and I visited my father's grave every month, bringing flowers and sharing updates on the progress we were making. I would tell Dad about properties we had developed, jobs we had created, communities we had strengthened. Dante would tell him about decisions we had made, challenges we had faced, victories we had achieved. We are doing it, Marcus, Dante said during one visit, his hand clasped in mine. Building the empire you believed in. One where power serves a purpose beyond just perpetuating itself, where protection means more than just enforcing fear, where legacy means more than just accumulating wealth. You would be proud of what we have built, what we are building together. I think he knows, I said quietly. I think somehow, wherever he is, he knows we are. We are honoring him, by being together, by continuing his work, by being the people he believed we could be. Do you really think he approves? Dante asked, voicing the doubt that occasionally plagued us both. Of us. Of me loving his daughter? I think he planned it, I said, voicing the suspicion I had carried since that first night. That conversation 6 months before he died, where he told me to trust you, told you I was exactly the kind of woman you needed. I think he saw this coming, understood that his death might bring us together. And I think he wanted that, wanted us to take care of each other. He gave us to each other. Dante's voice was thick with emotion, as a final gift, a way to ensure his death did not leave us both destroyed by loneliness and grief. Exactly. I leaned my head on Dante's shoulder. He loved us both enough to trust us with each other. to believe we could build something together that would honor his memory, and I think we are doing that. Dante proposed to me 18 months after my father's death, in the parking garage where he had first found me crying at 1:44 a.m. He had arranged it carefully, ensuring we would be alone, bringing me to my car under the pretense of checking on a security system upgrade. "This is where it started," he said, gesturing to the parking space, "where I found you breaking. Where we broke together. Where your father's gift to us, to each other, began." "I remember," I said, tears already forming. "Remember being so destroyed I could not function. Remember you getting in my car. Remember crying in your arms while you cried in mine. You whispered something that night," Dante continued, "when you told me what Marcus had said 6 months before he died. You said he knew we would need each other, that we were the two people he loved most, and we would need family. You gave me family that night, Maya. Gave me a reason to keep being the man Marcus believed in, instead of retreating into grief and guilt. You did the same for me. I took his hand, gave me purpose when I felt purposeless, gave me a way to honor Dad that was active instead of passive, gave me love when I thought grief would consume me." Dante dropped to one knee, pulling a small box from his pocket. "Maya Reeves, will you marry me? Will you legally bind yourself to a man with a violent past and a complicated present? Will you continue your father's work of keeping me human? Will you let me honor Marcus's memory by loving his daughter the way he deserved to be loved?" "Yes." The word came through tears and laughter. "Yes to all of it. To you. To us. To continuing what Dad started. To building the future he believed in." The ring Dante slipped onto my finger had belonged to his grandmother, a family heirloom. But engraved on the inside was a phrase in Italian that Dante translated, "For Marcus, who made this possible." We married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the same church where we had held my father's funeral. The symmetry felt right, beginning our future together in the place where we had said goodbye to the man who had brought us together. My vows were simple. You found me at my lowest point and refused to let me face it alone. You shared grief that should have destroyed us and instead let it bind us. You honored my father by being the man he believed you could be. I promised to continue his work, to be your conscience and compass, to challenge and support you, to love you the way Dad loved you, completely and without reservation. Dante's vows made everyone cry. Marcus Reeves gave me 18 years of loyalty, wisdom, and friendship. Then he gave me his greatest gift, you. I promised to honor his memory by being worthy of that gift, by protecting you the way he would have wanted, by building with you the empire he believed in, by loving you with all the humanity he helped me preserve. You are my second chance, Maya. My redemption. My proof that something beautiful can grow from loss. We built a life together that honored my father's memory. Dante continued transitioning his organization toward legitimate operations, with me as his partner and advisor. We established the Marcus Reeves Foundation, funding education and opportunity for young people in disadvantaged communities. We bought the building where my father had grown up, renovated it into community center bearing his name. When our first child was born 3 years after we married, a son, we named him Marcus Daniel Moretti. Dante cried when he held his son for the first time, whispering to the baby about the grandfather he would never meet, but would always honor. He would have loved you, Dante told our son. Would have been so proud of you, of your mother, of what we built in his name. I think he knows, I said, watching my husband with our son. I think somehow he sees all of this, and he is proud. On what would have been my father's 60th birthday, 7 years after his death, Dante and I stood at his grave with our 2 children, Marcus, age 4, and Angela, age 2. Both too young to fully understand who their grandfather had been, but old enough to know he was important. Tell us about Grandpa Marcus, Marcus asked, his amber eyes, so like his father's, wide with curiosity. Dante knelt beside his son. Your grandfather was the bravest man I ever knew. He protected people, helped people, made the world better just by being in it. And he loved your mother more than anything. Everything good in our life, everything safe and beautiful and right, that is because of him. He died protecting Daddy, I added, my hand in Dante's, because he believed Daddy was building something important, something worth protecting. And he gave Daddy and me to each other, made sure we would not be alone after he was gone. So we are together because of Grandpa? Angela asked. We are together because of him, Dante confirmed, because he loved us enough to trust us with each other, to believe we could take care of each other the way he took care of us both. We miss him every day, I told our children, but we honor him by being kind, by protecting people who need protection, by building something good and beautiful and right, by loving each other the way he taught us to love. That night, after the children were asleep, Dante and I sat together on our balcony overlooking the same city where my father had died, where Dante had found me crying at 1:44 a.m., where we had built a life neither of us expected but both of us treasured. Do you think he knew? Dante asked quietly. That night, when he pushed me out of the way, do you think he knew what he was creating? What we would become? I think he hoped. I leaned my head on his shoulder. Think he understood that his death might be the thing that brought us together, that made us need each other. And I think he chose that, chose to give us to each other even if it meant leaving us. That is both beautiful and heartbreaking. Most profound love is both. I took his hand, lacing our fingers together. Dad loved us enough to die for what he believed in. And what he believed in was you becoming the man you are now, building the empire we have built, having the family we have created. He died for this future, Dante. This specific future where we honor him by being exactly who he believed we could be. Then we are doing it right. Dante pulled me closer, living in a way that makes his sacrifice meaningful. That proves he did not die for nothing but for everything. For love, for purpose, for a future worth protecting. Exactly, I whispered. And somewhere, I think he is watching, proud of what we built. Proud that we became family the way he hoped. Proud that his greatest act, his final gift, was giving us to each other. My name is Maya Moretti, and 10 years ago, I lost my father. 10 years ago, Dante Moretti found me crying in a parking garage at 1:44 a.m., and what I whispered made him cry too. I told him my father had known he would die, had known we would need each other, had given us to each other as his final act of love. That whisper, that devastating truth, broke us both. But from that breaking came something neither of us expected. A partnership, a love story, a family, a future built on the foundation of Marcus Reeves's belief in both of us. We did not just survive his death. We honored it by being exactly the people he believed we could be, by building exactly the empire he believed in, by loving each other exactly the way he hoped we would. Thank you for joining me on this journey through my story with Dante. If it touched your heart, please share it with others who need to hear that love can grow from loss. That grief shared is grief halved. That the people we lose never truly leave us if we honor them by living the way they hoped we would. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for believing that even in our darkest moments, at 1:44 a.m. when we are crying and broken, someone might find us. Someone might see our pain and share it. Someone might become family not despite our loss, but because of it. And that family, chosen and gifted and earned through grief, might become the most beautiful thing we ever build.